Hello, today I'm going to be making a video on some advanced F2L tricks that I've learned. Alright, so here's a case that I probably don't use too often in solves, but if I ever notice it and I remember it, I will use it. It would especially be good to use with this edge orientation, because doing this alg would do EO in this case. So if you get this case here and you're in this position, or maybe perhaps you're in this position but you have this edge orientation. So what you want to do is hold it right here and do this. So this is the mirror of the case I just showed you. So again, you want to have this edge orientation to do EO, or if you're just sitting in this position and you feel like doing this out from here, you would go like this. Okay, so there's a few different ways to do this case. Well, obviously you can do it from this angle, like this, or like this. Or you could do it from the back using those same two algs, but from this angle. But let's say you get this case and you're in this position right here. There are many ways to do this. Now, Chris Olsen's way, or the way he shows in his advanced F2L videos, would be this. Now, you could do that, but I prefer a different alg that doesn't require as much, re-gripping your hands to do this. And what that would be is this. Now, you could also do this from the back, like from here, and do it like this. So yeah, for this case, you could either do it from this angle or this angle, and to do EO, you want to have just this edge facing upwards. This is the mirror of the previous case I just showed you. Again, you can do it from this angle, or you could even do it from this angle if you wanted. And you would want to have this edge orientation to do EO, if you want to do EO. So from this angle, you go like this. Okay, so this case again, but from this angle, you would go like this. Alright, so there are like 10 billion different ways to do this case right here. Now you may think this is a really bad case, and you'd be right. But you have a lot of options. So from this particular angle, I think that the best option for this case would be an RU-Gen alg. So the main alg that I use would be this. Now, you can do this in a lot of different ways, but that's the main one that I recommend from this particular angle. Now, from the back, you may want to do that same alg, but I actually don't do that alg from this angle. From this angle, I use this alg right here. Now, you can do it from those two angles, and you can also do it from this angle. Now you may think, how could you do it from this angle? You'd have to rotate and then do a long alg. That wouldn't be very good. Well, there is another alg you can use from this angle. So here's how it goes. Alright, so for this case right here, this case is kind of bad. Normally you'd have to like rotate and do this and whatnot. Now you could do that to influence the edges on top, but for this particular edge orientation where you have 3 edges here, you would probably want to do the RU-Gen alg. Now there's a lot of different ways to do this. One way is to go like this. But the way I would prefer is to do a way which gives you a solved pair, and in that case you can do a winner variation. So what I would do here is I would go like this. And I have this pair here, and then I can do a winner variation. Okay, so here's the same case, but with a different edge orientation. So if you have it where these two edges are up here, and then this one's flipped, and you have this here, and what you want to do is you want to influence the edges so that once you finish the pair, all of the edges will be solved. So what you want to do, you could either do this with 2 rotations, or you could use F moves. So if you want to do 2 rotations, you would have to rotate to here, then go like this, and then move back and do that. Or you don't have to do 2 rotations. You can just do F moves. Now it's a little bit more awkward, but at least you don't have to do 2 rotations. So what I would usually do in this case to preserve all of the edges is to go like this. So this is the mirror of the previous case. So yeah, it's basically the exact same as the other case. For this edge orientation, you would just go like this. And if you have this edge orientation like this, you would want to actually, I wouldn't really do F moves if I was in this orientation. I would probably just do 2 rotations, so I'd go like this. And you can also do both of those angles from the back if you want. So like right here, if you have it from this angle, you could just go like this. And the same applies to the mirror. You can do it from the back if you want. Okay, this is a pretty terrible case, but there's many different ways to approach it. So, let's say you have this edge orientation, and you have this case. Well, you don't want to do the standard algorithm, which is, like this, because that messes up all the edges. So you would probably want to do either an RU-gen alg for this, or you could do another one that involves D moves. For me personally, I prefer the one with D moves, but I will show you both algorithms. So if you want to just do RU-gen for this, you can go like this, and then you basically just have this case. Or if you want to do D moves, you could go like this. Alright, so that's how I would do it from this angle. If you got it from the exact, well, from here you just rotate. From here, well, you wouldn't want to do the D moves because then you'd be doing L moves as well, and that would be really awkward. So you basically just do the RU-gen alg from this angle, like this. Alright, so that's basically with this edge orientation. So now let's try a different case where you have let's say you have this edge orientation right here. So if you're in this position, well, obviously if you do the normal algorithm, you're going to get all of your edges on top. So you should probably do that. And if you're in this position, I would just recommend, instead of doing 2 rotations, I would just recommend doing F moves like this, so that you can get all of your edges oriented. Oops. Now, yeah, basically the same from this position. You would just go like that and solve. And also from this position too. However, if you are back here, you would still just rotate and do the alg. Okay, that was pretty easy. Now that you can do that alg, but from a different angle. Now let me try to set that up. Okay, I said different angle, but I actually meant different edge orientation. So yeah, this is an alternate alg for this case, which you could use as the default alg for the case, or you could just use it for edge orientation, which is what I do. So let's say you have this case, and you have this edge orientation right here. Well, you could do this algorithm to solve this case and also all the edges. Okay, so now we have the mirror of that case. We have this case. Now, with this particular edge orientation, let's say you're just in this position, you could just do the standard algorithm like that, which would orient the edges. Now, I'll show you an alg from this position a little bit later, but let's say you have it in this position. Now, you could do the alg where you go like this. That would involve some F moves that aren't very comfortable to use. But there is another way to do it, which is a little bit better. So, if you have this case and you have this edge orientation, here's the alg you would want to use. Let's say you get this case and you have this edge orientation. Now, from this angle, this case would be pretty bad. Now, there are multiple ways to do this, actually. The first way is to do some RU gen and then get a winner variation. So, what that would entail is moving it over to here, then doing this. And then you do a winner variation. But let's say either you are sitting right in this position and you have this edge orientation, or it doesn't even matter what the edge orientation is, and just as long as you're sitting in this position. Unless you have a dot case, then you probably want to do something else. But you could do an alg from this position that uses RUD moves, and it's pretty fast. So here's what you would do. Here's the exact same case, but from a different angle and with a different edge orientation. So here we have this edge orientation. So here's the alg you would want to do to solve this case and orient the edges. Alright, so let's say you have this case here. You could do this to solve it. Or, let's say you have this edge orientation. Or you are standing, or you are positioned right here. You don't want to rotate and then do RU2 or RU prime. So if you're here and you have this edge orientation, here's the alg you want to do. You can also do this alg from another angle. So let's say you're in here, right here. Well, you can do the exact same alg, but from the back, so like this. This also applies to the mirror of this case, so let's do that. So here we have the mirror. That's not the mirror. I'm stupid. Let's see here. Here we go. We got the mirror of the case. So now we have this case and we have this edge orientation. So you can do it from this angle or from this angle, but I'll show you both of them. So here's this from this angle. And here's it from this angle. Here we have this case right here. This is a pretty bad case, but we can work with it in a bunch of different ways. So let's say you have this position and also preferably this edge orientation. Here's the alg you would want to do. Alright, so let's say you have this case and you also have this edge orientation. Well, what you would probably want to do is go over to here, and to force all the edges on top, here's what you would want to do. Let's say you get this case right here from this angle, and also this edge orientation would be good as well. You could do this right here. Now that would work, but I don't actually use that. But it would be good because then you'd have a winter gradation. But this is the alg here. I'm going to demonstrate the alg that I actually use. So for this case, from this angle, with this edge orientation, here's the alg I would use. Okay, I can show you this case from one more angle. So let's say you get this case right here. This would be pretty terrible. But for one thing, you actually have an alg for it from this angle. So here's what you would do. You'd basically just do a fat soon, but you'd add a B move into there. So here's what you'd do. Alright, here's this case. Not too great, but guess what? Whenever you get this case and you have 3 edges on top, no matter where those edges are, you can always force. You can always do EO. You can always force all of the edges on top. At least I know how to do it for every single case where there are 3 edges. So let's say you get it with the 3 edges on top. Here's what you would want to do. Well, you could do it a couple of different ways. One way is just to do the standard alg, which is like this. That would force all the edges on. But here's a better algorithm. Alright, so now let's try a couple of different edge orientations. So let's say you have this case and you have these edges on here. Now it may be a little bit difficult to recognize, but I can understand that, and I don't, most of the time I won't be able to do this in a solve, or if I do it in a solve, it's going to be pretty slow because it's pretty hard to recognize. But here's what I would do in this case. Now you could either use F moves or you could do 2 rotations, but it doesn't really matter. Now what that does is just preserves all the edges. Alright, so let's try another one. So let's say you have this case and you have this edge orientation. So here's what you would want to do. I would probably recommend doing this with F moves for the most part. So basically what you've done is you force this case here, which is just a sledgehammer. Here's the final edge orientation case for this. So basically it's the exact same thing as that one other one where you do a sledgehammer, but instead of having to do the sledgehammer, you just do the regular insert. So for this, you would go like this. So the same applies to all of the mirrors of that case. I'm not going to show you all of the mirrors. You should be able to just figure that out for yourself. It's not that hard. You basically just do all of those exact same algs but mirrored. So basically, like, instead of doing RUR prime, you do L prime, U prime L. But yeah, basically do that. Do those exact same algs, but for the mirror of that case. Alright, so there's a bunch of different ways to do this. Now, most people would probably just go like this. Now, that is good to do for some EO cases. But for this particular edge orientation case, you would, and also in a lot of different cases, you would probably just want to go like this. Alright, so now you can do that same case but affect the edge orientation. So if you have 3 edges solved, there are many different ways to do this, but so let's say you have it like this. Now you don't want to, probably would not, if you want to affect the edges here, probably wouldn't want to do the sledgehammer because then you'd get rid of all the edges. So instead, try to take this out of here, but make sure all the edges still stay on top. So for this particular case, you would go like this to keep all the edges there. Alright, here's a different one. So let's say you have this edge orientation. You wouldn't want to do the sledgehammer because that gets rid of edges. So what you would want to do instead is take it out, but preserve the edges. So in this case, you would go like this. Here's another case where you have this. Now you wouldn't want to do the sledgehammer again because you would mess up the edges. So what you want to do is take it out while preserving the edges like this. And here's basically the last case where you have this and all three edges on. Again, it's pretty intuitive just to go like this. And you have your edges preserved. Now, there's a way to do this from multiple angles. Now I will go over some cases where the edge orientation isn't really a factor, but I will show the correct edge orientation for each case anyways. So, here's this case. Here's how to do it from this angle, and especially if you want to preserve all these edges here. Now let's say you have this edge orientation and you're from this angle. Doesn't matter if you have this edge orientation, but if you have this, then if you do the out from here, all the edges will be preserved. Finally, we have this case and from this angle. So one way to do it, especially if you have this edge orientation, is to do the lefty sledgehammer, which is a little bit awkward, but you can do it pretty easily if you just go like this. Let's say we're solving for this pair. You have it in this, like this. Now what you could do is like do some F moves like that, or you could even rotate and do that. That's fine. But let's say you're just sitting right here and you don't feel like rotating. Well, there's a very simple alg you can do. You can go like this. You can do that exact same alg from the back as well. Go like this. And that applies to all of the mirrors for that case. Let's say you have this case and you're in this position right here. There's a couple of different ways you can do it. You could just do like double sledgehammer and have this, but I think there's a better way, or at least it's a very good way to do it without having to rotate. So here's what you would do. Let's say you have this case right here and it's got to go back here. There's a very, very simple way of doing it from this angle. Here's what you would do. Just do a sledgehammer. And there you go. So, now, let's say you get this case and it's all the way back here. Now, a good way to solve it would just be to do like this and then rotate and solve it. But let's say you are not in the mood to do a rotation. Well, there's another alg you can do. You can go like this. And that applies to all of the mirrors of that case. Okay, let's say you have this case and it needs to go here. Here's a simple alg you can do. Let's say you have these two pieces, they need to go all the way back here. Now, what you could do is just go like this and have this. Now that would be good. That would be a good solution. But there is one that is a lot less moves. Now, it may be a little bit awkward, but after all, it is way less moves, so you could technically save time on this. So here's what you would do. That also applies if you're right in this position. If you have these two pieces right here, you could do the exact same alg, but from this angle. Okay, let's say you got this case and you have to put it back here. Now, you could go like that and you have the pair. That's alright. But there's another way to do it without rotating. So here's what you would do. Now, you could do that exact same out, but from the front. Now, you have this case here. Well, let's say you're in this position. Well, what are you gonna do from here? Well, you could literally just do the same variation of algorithm, but basically just a mirror of it. So go like this. How about if you're here? Oh yeah, you can do it from here too. For these two pieces. Well, let's say you got this and it has to go back here. There's a very, very easy algorithm you can use. Let's say you have this corner and you have this edge back here. There's a pretty simple algorithm you can use here, and this is what it is. Let's say you have this horrible case right here. Well, it is pretty bad, but let's say you have some open slots, like, say this one. Let's say there's nothing in the slot. What you could do is move this corner right here, then do a sledgehammer to put this edge right there. Then you can just insert this edge, and then there you go, it's solved. Here's a case that all cubers will recognize from the beginner's method. Now you could use the beginner's method. That's totally fine, but it requires rotations, which is not good. So there are multiple ways to do it without rotations, but here is the main way that I would recommend. You could also do it with the edge right here and do this algorithm. Now I'm going to show you another alg you can use so that you can preserve all of the edges on top. Alright, so here's this alg, but you have all of your edges on top, and you just want to preserve those edges. So, well, you could use those exact algs that I showed you. But, let's just twist some corners here. Let's say you have this case right here, and you have all of the pieces solved. Now, you don't want to do this alg because that would mess up some of the corners. So, let's say you have all the pieces up here and you have this that needs to go in here. Here's an alg you can use. And that applies to the mirrors of that case as well. Now here's a way to do some edge orientation. Now actually there's two different ways to do this. One way is to go like this and then do a sledgehammer. Another way to do it is actually to do the sledgehammer first, and that would still give you the exact same edge orientation. So do the sledgehammer first, and there you go. Here's a case that you may see more often than you think, in many forms. So you have this edge, and it needs to go in here. Basically just need to go like that to get there. You could do this exact alg from the front and the back, and there are different mirrors of this case as well. So you could probably be able to figure those out yourself, but I will show you the main case here. So It's where this edge needs to go here. So here's the out for that. I'll also show you how to do it from the back, except I probably would not do it too often from back here, but it is possible to do it. Now you could do that case with all of its mirrors and whatnot, so yeah, there you go. Okay, here's the last case that I almost forgot to show you. It's this. So I will show you how to do this and also to get EO. So for this, want to make sure if you want to get the EO, you need to have this one line facing in this direction like this. So here's what you do. And then you just got this. Let's say you got the exact same case. You can do the exact same alg I just did, but from the back. You should be able to figure that out yourself. But how about if you have it from right here? Well, right here, here's another alg. So if you have this line right there, you gotta have it facing in the back like this, and you do this. So take out the pair, and then oh, what do you know? You got this case. So you just do this. Alright, so you should be able to figure out the rest of the variations of that case because they're all just mirrors of each other and stuff. So just try to figure it out yourself. Now I will show you what to do if you have all three edges still on top, but you have that case. So say this applies to basically all the mirrors and everything. So let's say you just got this case here. What you basically want to do is take it out to preserve all the edges, and also one thing I like to do is take it out in a way where I can do a winter variation. So for this particular thing, I would just go like this. That preserves the edges, plus gives me a case where I can do winter variation. So that applies to all of the mirrors and everything too. So hopefully you can figure that out yourself too. Alright, so that's pretty much all the advanced cases I could think of for now. Let me know if you have any questions, and I hope you found this video helpful. Thanks for watching.